If we want to cut using Pro Cutter, and we have a surface like this that is pretty much a solid, but we'd like it to have just a small thickness to make it a hollow surface, a hollow model, you can use the technique that I'm going to show. So this is a typical case if you have a statue or anything that's a whole geometry that you would have only have a thickness. You can use the shell modifier to create the geometry, or you can also use the technique that I'm going to show. So in order to do this, what I'll do is I'll just clone this object. I'll make it a reference. And the reason why I'm doing a reference is that the modifiers that I'll apply to this here will apply only to this new clone, but the original object is still as a reference. So if it's modified, we're going to get those modifications as well. So I'm going to go into Wireframe Mode to see what's going to happen. I'm going to apply the push modifier on this reference. And I'm going to reduce the push here. Instead of going in positive, I'm just going to go in negative value. And it's going to create a second geometry that is inside here. On top of that push modifier, what I'll do is I'll apply an edit poly modifier, edit poly, and I'll select all of the faces, and I want those faces to point inward, so I'll just make sure that we flip them. So if I go here and say flip, now they're pointing inward, which is exactly what we want. But the thing about this technique of cutting with Pro Cutter, it needs to be an open geometry. So now it's a closed geometry, which means that it's a volume and it has a hole inside. But we need to have an exterior access to that hole if we want it to work. So what I'll do here is, now that we have the faces in the correct placement, I'll just convert it back to an editable poly. And I'll attach the original one, and now we have the two objects attached to each other. They're two separate elements, but I'm going to go here into, I'm going to go back into realistic mode. We need to create a hole somewhere in there. So the best way is to go somewhere where it's not that visible. So I'm going to select that face here and delete it. I'm going to select the face that is inside. I'm going to delete it as well. And then I'm going to grab all of the caps that are, or all of the borders, sorry, that are here. And instead of capping them, I'm going to use the bridge tool, which is going to create a bridge between those faces. So now we have a hole, and we have access, and it's a single element. So it's a single closed volume, but we have access to the hole inside. So that's going to work. So that's what we need to do in order to create an hollow surface. So now if I just show you the cutters that I've created for this, it's just, we want to create some brick effects. I'm going to grab one of these planes, and I'm going to go into Pro Cutter, and I'm going to enable all of these options. I'm going to go pick cutter objects. Since I've got a lot to pick, I'm not going to go manually and go one by one. I'm going to use the select by name and select all of the cutters. Pick those. It's going to take a few seconds to add all of them into the operation and into the modifier. And when it's going to be all added, I can go here and say pick the stock object and grab this brick tower. So it's going to take, again, a few seconds, but it's going to break that hollow surface of that hollow model, and because we created that hole, it's going to work perfectly, and we're going to get a set of bricks from that geometry. It takes a few seconds, so done. I can delete that, and now you see that all of these are separate bricks. So if I just go back into turn off the edge faces, if I grab one of those here, and actually if I want to simulate that later, something that we need to remember, effect pivot only and center to the objects. I've selected all of them here, and now we've got all of these bricks separate. So if I just grab those here and like that. So that's kind of the idea. If you want to break a hollow surface, you can use the same technique, but you need to create that inner element, flip the faces, and create a hole, and you'll be able to use the Pro Cutters to break this object in pieces.